YouTube, Sandre here. Before this video begins, let me just remind you of a video that I uploaded a few days ago called Brain Augmentation and Brain Splatter. Despite this video being very much anticipated by my subscribers, it didn't actually receive a lot of views at all, which I find kind of odd. It's the same story with my video, Caffeine, the molecule that kicked the world into gear. It was also very much anticipated, just as anticipated as the video on brain augmentation. But it also received views that are a bit below what I usually get. I can't really find any rational explanation for this other than my subscribers simply not being notified. So I do urge all of you who are watching right now, click the bell just to make sure that you really are notified when I drop a video. And also do follow me on social media. Do all of this and you are far more likely to actually be notified when I make new content. I'm doing YouTube as a hobby, and the only thing I would really want is for my subscribers to actually watch my content that I put a lot of effort in making. And if you guys simply aren't notified, I don't find that acceptable at all. Now let's begin. Much like the last video on Jordan Peterson, I'm actually not going to say too much in this video, because I've found it to be an even better tactic to deal with his sycophants, to simply just show them what he is saying himself. Perhaps the best approach with dealing with someone like Jordan Peterson, someone who is very eloquent at talking, is to simply highlight his contradictions and the absurd things he does say sometimes. Maybe it's not what I say about Jordan Peterson that is the most important to highlight, but what he himself says. And much like the last video, that's what I'm going to do with this one. So here you have Jordan Peterson's Unpragmatic Pragmatism. The title of this video is explained with what I'm about to show you. Jordan Peterson has a very, let's say, strange concept of the idea of truth. Of course, truth is not something as easily definable as you may think. Even on a personal level, one's idea of what truth really is may not be the same as another person's idea of truth. Although, we can all agree that reality is reality. Whether you believe that reality is a simulation or the actual real deal, there is no denying that reality is indeed reality, for all intents and purposes. You can split hairs in a philosophical manner as much as you like, but at some point, two parties in any discussion will have to come to a unanimous conclusion that A is true, but B is not true, for instance. This isn't even about the actual nature of reality itself, it's simply pragmatism. To get anywhere in any kind of discussion, you have to be able to be unanimous on some kind of definition of truth. And as you will witness in the clips I'm about to show you, Jordan Peterson doesn't seem to understand this. Not only does Jordan Peterson not understand the philosophical concept of pragmatism, as you will see, but his own concept of pragmatism is probably the most unpragmatic usage of the word truth as you have ever witnessed.
So now then you ask yourself, well, how do you determine whether or not a theory is true? Then you ask yourself, well, what do you mean by true? Well, then you're in trouble. Okay, because I think you can take a Newtonian perspective on that, or a Darwinian perspective, but you can't do both at the same time. Yeah? Okay. So Nietzsche said truth serves life. Okay, in some sense that's a Darwinian idea, okay? If it's true enough so that if you act it out or hold it, that increases your chances of survival and reproduction over long spans of time, that's true. So that means that a limited creature that's established itself by Darwinian means can't have access to the truth. They can only have access to sufficient truth. And sufficient truth is the truth that allows you to survive and reproduce. And from a Darwinian perspective, there isn't any truth past that. So I don't think Dawkins is a Darwinian, I think he's a Newtonian, because he believes that there is truth. The Darwinians don't believe that. The Darwinians say, no, there's enough truth to keep you alive and have you survive. And that's all. The thing about the pragmatists, like I said, as soon as Darwin published The Origin of Species, they recognized that the theory of evolution was pragmatic. They got it like right now. They were very excited about it. So, and they got excited about it because the Darwinian claim is things are always true enough, and that's it. The fundamentals of truth are those that guide action. And then the objective science is nested inside that. It has to be. Right. There's no way around that.
You see, according to Jordan Peterson, all that we really know, the idea of truth, is simply what is functional to us. It is, in other words, true enough. He has a definition of truth, which is truth serves life. Basically, if you find something to be beneficial, that is what Jordan Peterson considers to be true. And the ridiculousness of his assertion will become apparent later on. Jordan Peterson also asserts that if something is unethical, goes against what you would consider to be moral, then it cannot be true. Again, the absurdity of this kind of claim will become apparent later on. I'm going to show you a clip now that has been highlighted by other YouTubers because it really does show the problem of Jordan Peterson and his idea of truth. In this clip, Sam Harris is obviously annoyed with Jordan Peterson and tries to show him, as well as his audience, that no, Jordan Peterson doesn't really seem to understand the concept of truth. And he tries to show the inherent ridiculousness of Jordan Peterson's assertions. Now let me just make one thing clear. I am not a fan of Sam Harris. Just like Jordan Peterson, I find Sam Harris to be very much overrated. And I'm actually planning in the future to make a video or two on Sam Harris as well. But in this example I'm about to show you, there is no denying that Sam Harris pretty much mops the floor with Jordan Peterson. And it doesn't even seem like Jordan Peterson is aware of it.
So it seems to me that you're saying that the reductio ad absurdum of a Darwinian conception of knowledge would be if we ever learned certain truths that got us all killed, well, then that would prove that these things weren't true or that this was an intellectual dead end.
Yeah, they weren't true enough, I would say.
If knowing what is true got you all killed, well, then that would be a truth that wouldn't be worth knowing, but it wouldn't make it less true, right? So if I say,
well, so let's imagine for a moment. I understand what you're saying, and I don't see that there's any logical problem with it. But I would say that we're actually starting from different fundamental axioms. Like the fundamental axiom that I'm playing with is something that was basically expressed by Nietzsche, and it's a definition of truth. And so I would say if it doesn't serve life, it's not true.
You clearly have to have a conception of facts and truth that is possible to know, that exceeds what anyone currently knows and exceeds any concern about whether it is useful or compatible with your own survival even to know these truths.
Okay, well then I would say that I don't think that facts are necessarily true. So I don't think that scientific facts, even if they're correct from within the domain that they were generated, I don't think that that necessarily makes them true. And I know that I'm gerrymandering the definition of truth, but I'm doing that on purpose because I'm trying to nest truth within a Darwinian framework, which I think is a moral framework. And I think that the logic of your argument about morality is going to push you in the same direction, inevitably.
You're choosing, following Nietzsche here, you're choosing to use the word true. You're choosing to freight it with some moral concerns that will make it very difficult for people to understand what you mean and for you to understand what they mean when you use truth as a synonym for, as you just said, correct. A fact may be correct, but it's not true.
Right.
It seems to me this is counterproductive, and you lose nothing by granting that the truth value of a proposition can be evaluated whether or not this is a fact worth knowing or whether or not it's dangerous to know.
No, but that's the thing I don't agree with, because I think that that's the kind of conception of what constitutes a fact that does in fact present a moral danger to people, a mortal danger to people. And I do believe that the highest truths, let's put it that way, the highest truths are moral truths. I'm thinking of that from a Darwinian perspective.
So I could say, for instance, you have an even number of hairs on your body, right? Now, I don't know that that's true, but I know I have a 50% chance of being right about that. Let's say that, now you're a hostage, and your hostage takers have a bizarre religion of their own invention where they will kill people who have odd numbers of hairs on their body, and they will venerate people who have even numbers of hairs. So now your life depends on which is true about you. So nothing has changed with respect to truth value about the claims we might make about the hair on your body, right? It's just a different situation. Your concept of truth can't be hostage to these superficial changes in context.
I think it's inevitably hostage to them. I don't think you can help it be hostage to them. I think that even the choice of what you're interested in as a scientist is subject to contextual factors that are part of the parameters within which you ask the question.
Jordan, what does that mean in this context? So I'm talking, again, this is a bizarre example that just may seem strange to talk about for any length, but I think it reveals, at the very least, an awkward commitment to revising our language.
I think what it means technically is that the only final way of sorting out whether a scientific claim is sufficiently true is through Darwinian mean.
I think you're simply deciding at the end of the day to say that any truths that led us down a path where we suffered unnecessarily or died weren't true.
Right. You have to choose what you mean by true. You have to. And I'm not accepting the same definition of truth that you operate under, and it's partly because I believe that Darwin trumps realism, let's say. I believe that pragmatism trumps realism.
If there's someone going around Toronto killing people for not being able to name all the US presidents in sequence, and let's say he's wrong about what the sequence is. So if you give him a sequence that is in fact inaccurate, that is untrue, but it works for him and you survive, it doesn't make it true, right? I mean, you need a concept of truth that flows through.
It makes it true enough to survive.
Yes, it makes it useful. It's a good thing you got the wrong sequence, but we
yes,
still...
Well, I did tell you at the beginning that I was a pragmatist nested in Darwinism.
We need a concept of truth that allows us to make statements like that, but your concept of truth is collapsing everything back to whether we survive.
Right.
Presumably whether we survive happily, right?
No, just whether or not we survive. Well, we're definitely disagreeing. I think you understand, and I think...
I don't think we are disagreeing. I think you are committed to elevating the concept of truth, or what you imagine to be elevating it, into this kind of the moral stratosphere where it entails goodness.
That is precisely and exactly what I'm doing. There's no doubt about it.
We can't think about scientific truth in that sense, again, for many reasons, but certainly because we can't wait around to see if everyone dies to find out if we're making sense in the present.
Sure. The thing is, Sam, we do think about it that way already. We think about it that way all the time. We think, well, messing around with smallpox is probably a bad idea because it might be fatal. Anytime we have any inkling that the outcome of a scientific experiment might be catastrophe on the broadest possible scale, we immediately decide that that's a bad idea.
Well, of course, but that again, has nothing to do with epistemology. That has to do with danger and survival and risk and things that worry us.
Right, which I would say are higher truths. So it does have something to do with epistemology.
For most things we want to talk about, there is no implication of danger on that scale at all, and yet we still have to make strong truth claims. We can make this as prosaic or as weird as you want. If someone says that your wife is cheating on you, presumably that's within the realm of possibility, provided that you have a wife, and you're going to want evidence. And what would constitute evidence? Well, here's evidence. I saw it in a dream. Well, that's bad evidence. Well, here's evidence. I hired a private investigator, and here are 17 pictures of her at various locations with a man you've never seen before, and he looks like Brad Pitt. Now, all of a sudden, presumably you're interested, right? Now, the claim about whether or not she's cheating on you is an intelligible claim. We could drill down on what it might mean. Does she have to be having sex with this person to be cheating on you? Well, let's say yes, she does. Okay, so then there's a claim about what she's actually doing with this person in a locked room somewhere when you're not around. That's a claim that has absolutely nothing to do with whether or not you wind up killing yourself based on your reaction to this unhappy truth. If you then wound up killing yourself, we could say at the end of the day, well, it would be better if he hadn't known that. It would certainly be better if she hadn't done that. It would have been better if he had married a different woman. Surely we would want to say that.
It might be better if he would have paid attention to his damn marriage and to attribute the cause of his demise to the existence of the photographs. This is why I brought up Josh Green, is that investigations into this kind of morality always frame it in such a way that...
Jordan, you have to grant one thing here. There's one piece that doesn't get moved here. You cannot move the piece that because you killed yourself, it's not true that she was having an affair. That move is not open to you, and yet you're acting like it is.
You know, I think we've been going down this road for so long that I'm not exactly capable of them at the moment of making the macro example leap, because you're making a case there that it's sort of quasi-associated with science. That's the photographic evidence and the realism that's associated with that. And then you're making the claim that, you know, it's not true that she wasn't having an affair. I'd have to take that apart more. He killed himself. Like, you're throwing a lot of things into that example that I believe are contextually important to my unpacking the ethics behind it, you know, because you're equating the fact that she had an affair to him committing suicide, which, you know, there's a whole backstory there. And it also depends to a large degree precisely on what you mean by an affair, which was something that you brushed over. So, you know, you're acting. That's the problem with these damn micro examples, is that, and this is why I don't trust Josh Green's work. It's because you set up a narrative that's completely fictional, and you act as if each of the subcomponents of the narrative are isolated truths that have no external context.
I guess according to Jordan Peterson, this could be called Schrodinger's cheating wife. Did she cheat? Did she not? Oh well. It's all about how we define truth. We don't know. It's all about how you define truth. Is it beneficial to know? I don't know. I don't want to believe it's true, so it's not true. It really is that ridiculous, folks. Now, like I've explained from the very beginning when I first started making my response videos to Jordan Peterson, I don't hate the guy. Honestly, I really don't care about him that much. I do care about his fans though, and I'm seeing how they seem to just swallow even the most apparently absurd ideas that he spreads. I think the ridiculousness is self-evident in the clips I've shown you. The next video on Jordan Peterson is gonna be the last one, at least until he gives me another reason to respond. And it's gonna be one of his pet projects, his firm stance against postmodernism. Little does he know that he himself is kind of identical to a postmodernist. You will understand when you watch that video. Anyway, thank you all for watching. Bye!